Hello, we're going to go ahead and get started, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We welcome all of you. We're glad that you could be with us this afternoon. Today's topic is strategic planning for your business with Steve DuVall, business coach and principal at Permanent Progress LLC. I'm Laura Gustafson with TDMAW, and I will be your host today. We would like to take a moment to thank all our great partners and sponsors for their ongoing support of our industry and association. They help us bring meaningful and fun events to our members throughout the year, and they are all recognized on the splash screen here. During Steve's presentation, you will be able to ask questions by submitting through the Q&A on the bottom center of your screen. I know many of you are familiar with Zoom, but for those of you that aren't, if you don't see the Q&A icon, move your cursor to the bottom of your screen and a menu bar will appear, which will include a Q&A box option. And maybe if everyone could just write hello in the Q&A box, just to be sure that we all know how that works. Okay, looks like most of you know how it works. I would also like to give you all an opportunity to ask questions throughout the presentation by unmuting yourselves. Steve wants to be sure that we get the most out of this presentation and that it's as interactive as possible. So in a moment, you'll see a dialog box appear on your screen. As I unmute each of you, please click yes to unmute yourselves. And then from there on out, you'll be able to mute and unmute yourselves by using the microphone icon in the bottom left corner of your screen. We ask that you keep yourself muted unless you're speaking to the group. Steve has planned stops throughout his presentation to give you opportunities to ask questions as we go. And if we run out of time, your questions will be answered via email or phone by Steve. The entire presentation will be recorded and you will receive a link explaining how you can view the presentation. If you have any audio or visual or technical difficulties during the presentation, please let us know through the Q&A box. And now on to our main event. Permanent Progress is a business coaching and consulting company who partners with business owners and their management teams, mainly in the manufacturing industry, to help business owners step away from the day-to-day operations and focus on consistent growth and the vision of their company. They work through all key areas of success, including strategic planning, leadership development, hiring and staffing, revenue growth and cost control, productivity, and succession planning, which we'll be focusing on today. Steve has a proven track record of success in supply chain management, strategic business planning, employee engagement, and project management, having delivered outstanding results throughout his career. Steve received his undergraduate degree from the University of Illinois and his master's degree from the University of Missouri, Kansas City. So with that, let's begin. Steve, take it away.
Great, can you hear me okay? I'm assuming yes, you're on mute. So I'm assuming everybody can hear me okay, so that's great. So let me just click here and I'll get the presentation going.
Okay, sorry, I muted myself too quickly. Yes,
okay.
We can hear you, Steve.
Okay, good.
Okay.
All righty, so let's get going here. Give me 1 second. Sorry, you gotta share screens here and I'll get you going. Okay, we should be good to go. So if you have any problems, please let me know. I guess, unfortunately or fortunately, I'm the only one that people get to look at today. So I think you have a control as well. You don't have to show my face as well. But anyways, again, thank you, Laura, for giving me the opportunity to speak today. I've really been looking forward to this. We've been planning this for several months, and Laura and her team have been very helpful. And to everybody here participating, again, I appreciate you taking the time to attend the session today. And I'm hoping you find it of great value by the time that we're complete. So before we get into our discussion topic today, I'd like to briefly talk about something unrelated. And I'm guessing you've all heard the phrase, how your day starts sets the tone for the rest of the day. Well, I really hope each of you had a good start to your day today, but I'd like to share an example of somebody that maybe was a little bit less fortunate when he started his day. So listen in here. Again, I can't see your faces, but I hope you got a little bit of a chuckle out of that one. I think it's a funny video. Even though it's showing wintertime, which we really don't like talking about right now, I just thought it very appropriate to kind of kick off with a little bit of humor. So again, quickly, my name is Steve DuVall. My company is called Permanent Progress. And I'm doing what I'm doing because I have the passion for helping business owners and business leaders really help achieve new levels of success in their businesses. And quick infomercial, because, you know, just to let you know a little bit more about my business, but I'm not going to go into a lot of time because this isn't about me. It's all about you. Again, in my business, as Laura stated, I'm an executive and business coach, and I focus on areas such as leadership development, strategic planning, our topic today, revenue growth, increased productivity, employee development, and all kinds of tools and assessments for evaluating employees and human resource related activities. So with that, let's get started. And before I talk about today, I wonder if you can send in the Q&A. I'd like to know how many people listening in actually have a strategic plan. I don't know, Laura, if you can get that answered, or we can see an answer. Just if you could real quick say yes, you have a strategic plan, or no, you don't. And Laura, if you could share that with me, I'd just like to get a sense of that.
Okay, we're waiting for responses at this point.
Okay, great.
We have one with no, they have one in development. Someone that says kind of somewhat has a plan going, not fully developed. So it looks like that's the majority here. We're in the process.
Okay, great. That just helps me understand, you know, who the audience is and how far along, if you are far along, or if not, and that's okay. So my goal for today is very simple. It's share the importance of strategic planning and the primary elements of a strategic plan. So, you know, depending on where you're at in this process, whether you haven't started, or you started and you're stuck, or you did it one time and you haven't resurrected it, you know, this is going to cover kind of the broad spectrum, but primarily focusing on the basic elements and rolling it up into a strategic plan. And again, in the end, I want this to, hopefully you see in the end how simple this can be, though it can be considered a very complex topic. But bottom line is, you're all experts at what you do in the business that you're in. I'm not here to tell you what to do by no means. I'm here to provide concepts, practices, and methods that you can use or think about comparing your business as a reference check. So hopefully that's fair enough with you. So the agenda, again, is very simple. I'm Simple Steve, so I like to keep it that way. And, you know, we're going to talk about what is strategic planning, why even do it, what are the challenges in trying to do it, what are some 5 key principles that I like to talk about, and then I'm going to show you a couple of sample one-page plans. And a little note about today's discussion, and maybe some of you are in that state, now's the time that this is really kind of a heavy activity or heavy discussion point in many companies, because you're planning the next year about now. If you're really thinking ahead, many companies start their strategic planning process about in September, October. That gets later than you probably should. Some even start in the summer. So I'm guessing your experiences might be similar. So the timing is great. That's my bottom line message there. Okay, let's get into strategy. And let's just keep a simple definition. It's really about making sure your organization knows where it wants to go and how it's going to get there. And the last 3 words I think are very important to remember. It's about transparency. And what that means is divulging everything that you have in your business and, you know, the good things and the bad things, of bringing those forward. And when we get into the process, that's what I'm going to ask you to do, is dig deep. You've got to be open. If you're going to address your business and try to drive for success, you got to be open with some of the issues that may have lingered within your company. And that's why that transparency piece is important. It's a vehicle for many things, but here's a few examples. Setting priorities, making business investment decisions because you know where you want to spend your money and what the long-term benefit's going to be. Obviously focusing on growth plans. And really a critical one, probably many of you know, is creating that organizational alignment, having that path and plan clear that you can share, which is just getting everybody marching in the same direction. But when it comes to bottom line, because there's a bottom line about everything, this is the purpose of strategic planning. You know, all of you have responsibility for adding value to your business, and that's what strategic planning does, is to increase that return on equity. And the question you may ask yourself is the business being run to maximize its current value or future value? And obviously the strategic planning is to focus on that future value. And that's why strategic planning is so critical. So benefits, again, there's many benefits that are out there, but some of the key ones are being proactive, right? Many times in our work, we get very reactive, and that's because we didn't plan. Strategic planning helps avoid that. Setting up that sense of direction for the organization, improving the operational efficiency. So if everybody's more aligned, you're more efficient. There's no doubt about that. Increasing market share and profitability, and obviously even making you more competitive within that framework. And then making more durable, because when you're digging deep into understanding your business more through this process, you're learning through some challenges you may have had in the past or experienced. And now you can take those learnings and apply those in your strategic plan forward. And when you run into those scenarios again, you're much more positioned to weather them and stronger. So this is a model I want to talk about, and how it kind of relates to strategic planning as well. And it relates to you thinking about your business. And this is called the Sigmoid Curve, which is a fancy name for the business life cycle. And the point of this graph is to really help everybody reflect on their business and understand that throughout your business life cycle, change is inevitable. It just happens. And understanding that there's different phases helps embrace the change and makes the best use of it. And it's not just about change of your overall business. You can look at change within a product line, within a service, within a capability, within a function. So you can take this from a company level down to lower levels as well. And it helps you kind of think about what the next steps should be. But the other quick point out of this is that strategic planning is a never-ending process. I don't know if any of you started your business, but again, if you started a business, most likely you created a strategic plan before you started that business. And that strategic planning has to carry on until you're out of that business in whatever form or fashion that is. So again, another point about kind of considering where you're at in the life cycle. And obviously, ultimately, when you look at the peak up there, you want to avoid that decline, right? You want to make sure that you continue on a growth trajectory. But there are challenges and barriers that prevent us from doing strategic planning, right? And this is really the one that comes up a lot. And, you know, we're really busy. Got clients, proposals, projects, employee issues. You know, we just kind of get on track and we keep moving. You know, there's no time to stop, evaluate, change, improve, or stop the work that's already working. We just work to work faster and not to get run over. I'm guessing that sounds familiar to many of you. And because of that, we put our head down and we keep working, not really knowing where it will take us. We haven't really stepped up above the business and looked at things from a higher level, you know, above the fog in the analogy here. And when we're down in the business, we see that's only like what's right in front of us, right? We're not looking out beyond that. The day-to-day work that pulls the prospects, again, the customers, the deadlines, the bills, whatever it may be. And it ends up being all reactionary. And again, the best thing we can do is to get faster at things. So again, another analogy here, kind of the scoring part, right? And when you're in that scenario, you don't know where you're at. You don't know the score. You don't know whether you get, you know, what the count is or the points or the penalties, however you want to say it. And it's important because that way you're just running in circles. and you don't know how you're performing, and you don't know where you're at in the marketplace and how you compare against competitors. And it's really important that you really have to understand that, you know. If you're looking to win a prize, you need to know where you're at in that effort to win that prize, and where are you at from a performance standpoint. And because of that, we really likely just never to arrive. Feeling like, again, we just keep going in circles. And we hear statements like success is the journey, not the destination. Well, if we don't have a strategic plan, then we may never ultimately get there. So the opportunity is, and if there's anything I ask you to do, is write these 3 words down. I think they're it's just great 3 words to talk about strategic planning. Because strategy creates power. When we are strategic, we create power. We're able to leverage or focus our resources and efforts to achieve greater results towards our strategic plan. One clear thought, one clear goal, or strategic direction creates huge power. We can focus on what's important and what's useful. We're also able to see the things that we can avoid or stop doing because they don't help our strategy. And here's another key point. We can give up what we think we're doing good in pursuit of the great because we have set that strategic plan. And it's vitally important for the owners and leaders to looking to grow, because, you know, anything is possible, but everything isn't. And I want to repeat that. Anything is possible, but everything isn't, right? Sometimes, again, when we set annual objectives, we make this big, wide net of things that we want to do. That's not the point here of strategic planning. It's to be very focused. And maybe even think about if you're doing this in your career today or your personal life, when you have a plan, you're in control. And that's the similarity here, right? The strategic plan gives you that power, gives you that control. But along the way, there's still going to be, you know, fog or bad weather, as we talked about before. But when you got a clear strategy, you know, you can view those changes and challenges as natural parts of the journey towards the destination that you set out to achieve. And you know, we've basically, through this process, we've set a course and we continue to move forward. And the busyness has a direction and a purpose because you know where you're going. And again, the analogy here is just like when sailors are at a destination, the tides, the waves, the winds are used all towards reaching that destination. They may not go in a straight line, but they're utilizing the busyness, those things that kind of are challenges along the way to still meet their objectives. And again, with the plan, you know, it's a clear strategic plan. You're able to set the course and just roll ahead on it. You know, you're going to have the obstacles, as we talked about, that might block the track, but we'll just keep clearing them as we continue on because you know where you're going and it's measurable. And we've set and laid the foundation and we can measure our process. So we set our destination, we set our path, we've set our methods and measurement, and the result is that we win on our terms that we've defined, not letting external things drive the way that we want to run our business and achieve things. This is what winning can look like. So here's a statement about organizations that use a process for managing strategy and outperforming their peers. I'm guessing all of you want to be better than your competitors. Well, here you can create a competitive advantage here by creating a strategy. I'm going to pick up this paper that I just dropped. But another point to emphasize this, and I got a paper, but I didn't put it on a slide. And I got this from Harvard Business Review. And this is looking at public companies, but it's still the same concept and still the same results if you think about it in any business. And they measured companies over a 14-year period, those that focused on the long term and all others. So those businesses that did and didn't. And average company revenue of those that focused on long term was 47% higher than those that didn't. That's huge. From an earnings standpoint, those that focused on long term were 36% higher. And the other big one, right, for most of our businesses or all of our businesses, the profit. Those focused on long term had a profitability 81% greater than those that weren't. So I think the data speaks to the importance of focusing on strategy and long term in your business. Okay, run through quite a bit, kind of laying the foundation of strategy and why it's important. And in order that, see if anybody's got any comments, thoughts, questions, I can take a minute here to answer anything. So I'll give you a second to respond.
Okay, we just unmuted a couple of later arrivals, so you folks should have seen a dialog box pop up on your screen, and you can click yes to unmute yourselves, and then you can control your mute button from the bottom left corner of your screen.
Hi, this is Kathy Fannerstill from Toolcraft. Thanks for presenting to our group today, Steve. I'm wondering about your comment related to, are we running our business based on our current value or our future value? My thinking is that you're talking about things like how scalable are our processes currently. I'm not sure, so I'm hoping you could
Sure.
Elaborate.
Sure, good question. So it probably what you're implying there, I think I'm trying to understand what you're saying, but I think it's what I'm referring to here, is that, let's just say, let me just take a current client that I work with. They've been at the same business level for the last 5+ years. Nothing's changed. So the point here is, are you building for what, are you just going to continue building a strategic plan around where you're at today and hold steady? Or are you building that business to grow and so that revenue stream and profitability and all that starts flowing? So I hope that answers your question, but that's basically what it is. It's really like just kind of working your business as it is today and not really versus, hey, I need to put plans in place to create my business so it's a greater value, 3, 5, 10 years from now.
Okay, I have a follow-up question, but I don't want to
Sure.
jump in front of anybody else. So anybody else have a question or?
I would say go ahead, Kathy.
Okay, so we do strategic planning at Toolcraft, and we've been doing it for the last, 10 years. And,
Good.
but the challenge we run into is not, sometimes we crush it and sometimes we really fall short. And like this year is one of those years where we didn't anticipate COVID like anybody else probably didn't. And so, what we thought was going to be a pretty big year for us turned into half of what we thought it was going to be, because
Sure.
of the impact on our customers and the market. So it's not so I guess my question is, how do you, when you have a growth strategy, which is what we have, how do you factor in the stuff that's like this into it? Or how do you address it? Because it's real. It's things completely outside of your control.
Sure. And this year's obviously been exceptional for almost everybody, right? So
right.
It's obviously outside the norm, but maybe thinking on a norm and without trying to go into too much detail, maybe we can talk later, Kathy, but it's
okay.
How are you managing that process? What's the accountability? What's the oversight process to the strategic planning? How frequent are you managing the strategic planning process? We're going to talk a little bit later about that frequency and driving the levels down in the organization. Now, when I say accountability, I'm not saying it's somebody's fault, but if as a leadership, if you're all aligned and managing that process tightly, the warning signs are coming sooner than later, and then you're making adjustments accordingly. You make as a decision those adjustments to your strategic plan. I don't know if I don't think I said at the beginning, but and I might be saying it later, I don't remember, but your strategic plan is a plan, right? And we all hear this many times, but you can change it anytime. And when you have severe things that happen in the business, that's the right thing to do, right? And so it's okay to do that. You're not a failure because you're doing that, because of those unexpected things. Now, when there are things that could have been managed, that's a different story, right? Then there's that piece that we should have planned better. So I hope that helps a little bit without kind of going too deep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Lori, I wait for your cue to get going, so.
I don't see any questions in the Q&A box, and I would say
okay.
We can continue.
That's right. Thanks for the input in the questions. Okay, so keeping that theme of simplicity, this is all strategy is, right? At a high level, it's very simple. It doesn't have to be complex. It's you're at point A, how do you get to point B? And, we were maybe a little bit off the topic of what Kathy was talking about, but the point here being is when you build a plan, don't worry about making it perfect. Just start. That is, it's just like anything else, right? Whether you're going to run a race or do anything else like that, or go work out or whatever, or start a new career, the key is just start. You always can adjust that plan. But what can happen is, and I've experienced it in my career, maybe you have too, and even outside of strategic planning, we may beat things to death and then you lose the momentum and the motivation. So start and work from there. So let's start getting into strategic plan. Okay, so I like to talk about 5 key principles when we talk about strategic plan. And the first one being, clearly defining the business. And 80% of success comes down to clarity. Whether it's in the business, work life, home life, it's really the same thing. And if you're stressed out or your organization is highly stressed and there's chaos, it's possible you've lost that clarity. And an effective plan has the clarity of the desired results, the current reality, and the roadblocks that may be in the way. And when I work with clients, this is what I hear from some of the owners, leaders, and even some of the employees. They get frustrated because they don't know where the business is headed. They hear some things here or there, but they don't know where they're headed. They may know their job role, but they don't know the big picture. And that's frustrating and inefficient. And it's typically because there isn't a clear strategic plan, or there isn't a strategic plan at all. So there's a huge opportunity. So there's 7 strategic business questions that you need to address over and over in your business. Sometimes a new answer to any one of these can really dramatically change the direction of your business. And insight that you get from continually asking these questions of yourself and the business can lead you to establishing new goals and new focal points for your future. So let's look at the questions we should ask ourselves. And one is very simple. What business am I in? Look to review this every year. What business are you really in? And define your business in terms of what you do for your customers or for your company. And keep expanding that definition of your business so that it's as broad as possible. Never be satisfied with the first answer. And I like to use a simplistic example. And I'm not insinuating anybody does it here, but somebody might say, well, I'm in the business of making parts for agriculture. Well, that's not really the business that you're in. What value and what totally are you giving your customers? That's the business you're in. So think about that and keep challenging yourself of what business you're really in. That's really obviously important to understand. Next is, what might you be in? And this has got a couple of sub-questions that I want to get to, kind of drilling in more. So, what business will I be in if things continue the way they are today? So if you do not change, what will you be doing 1 year, 2 years, 5 years from today? And is it an intelligent strategy to continue in your current line of business? Or should you be looking for a challenge or a change in some different way? Kind of, Kathy, back to your point, and I'm not saying you're doing this, but like my client I was talking about that we're working with, that's what we're trying to do. It's kind of been, they haven't looked to really make that shift. And this is where he's saying, hey, if we keep doing this, this is the way we're going to be in another 5 years. And then below that, you can ask yourself, what question could you be in? So if you would really change the level of knowledge or skills or your products or services, your industry or markets, what business could you really be in if you wanted to be? And then another one after that is, what business should you be in? Think about it. Is there another business that you actually should be in that you're not today? Maybe you have a core competency that can move into a different market or industry. Think outside the box. And that's a little bit of a challenge sometimes because we kind of get so focused. But think broader and try to think about totally new ventures without turning your organization upside down that can capitalize on the strength that you have as a business. And again, just overall, when you're looking at what business you're in, making sure you're rigorously assessing the market. What changes would you have to make today to create the ideal business of your future? Just keep thinking about that. Who's my competition? Most of you, I sure know that, right? And sometimes though, the competition can be not who we think it is. You know who your direct competitors are. I'm sure you deal with people head to head, just like any other business. So you know the who maybe, but think about the what. What are you competing against? So again, it may be not the company that you're competing against. It may be another service or another company that creates a value that you're competing against. So things like that. So think about not only the who, but the what. It's a different way of looking at competition just besides the companies themselves. Obviously, you need to know who your customers are. Whom do you have to satisfy in order to survive and thrive in your business? You know, and differentiate, you know, also think about it's the internal versus external. We always focus on the external customers, but maybe some of you have kind of taken that mentality of, hey, we need to take that customer approach internally as well. Those people in the internal supply chain are just as important as the customers externally. So think of it that way. But anyways, on the external, you identify who they are, clearly identify their needs, and make sure you're sorting who's the high value customers and who they aren't. And, you know, that comes to decision time too, where you start saying, why do I want to be working with these less strategic customers? You know, these ones really take a lot of investment and time out of my business, and I can apply those resources elsewhere. Those clear things can come up. And then again, think hard about what does your external customer consider value? What specific benefits does your customer get from using your product or services? And what does your customer really want and need from you? You know, really challenge yourself to think those things. A couple more things. What's your area of excellence? So where are you really strong? Are you really capitalizing on your strength? What do you do so well that your competitors have a hard time? And are you really making sure that you're continuing to build that and strengthen that and protect that as part of your business? On the opposite spectrum, what are the constraints? And sometimes when I talk to people, they talk about constraints, they think about, oh, I don't have machine capacity, or I'm missing people. And sure, that could be part of it. But think deeper again. Don't just think big, you know, just about the company. You could have a constraint, let's just say at function, right? And nothing against sales, let's just say your sales function is a constraint because maybe they're not properly trained. So they're not really fully utilized. There could be some business processes that you have that are constrained. You know, it could be another function, whether your finance processes are correct. And of course, in your manufacturing and stuff like that, you're going to look at that as well and find out where your bottlenecks are. But again, think of those constraints and bottlenecks outside of just your manufacturing process. Think about your business processes as well. And then the last one is back to the sigmoid curve. Where do you find yourself on the sigmoid curve, and what do you want to do with your business to make sure that you're headed in the right direction in the business life cycle? Okay, a lot there. Just want to kind of take a second and again ask if there's any questions, thoughts about the first principle around clearly defining the business.
Okay, Steve, this is Laura. We did have someone submit a question a little bit earlier, right after we moved on, and it was, can we use the election cycle, such as 2020, in place of COVID? Is it similar in the level of control, but the candidate platforms are drastically different, and I foresee the election causing problems in planning. How do we plan for such different tax platforms?
Oh, that's a bloated one. That's a good question.
How about that?
Yeah. You know, I'm just kind of quickly thinking, you know, when you're doing your strategic planning, you're going to look at, we'll get into this, or you're going to look at what your threats and opportunities are. So you can, and maybe we can come to that, we can spend a little more time, but just for now, this is the way that I would, it's like anything else, right? You want to think about, each year you think about whether the economy could collapse, right? That's a threat. Or our industry could collapse. What do we plan? What are our contingency plans if those happen? So that would be my recommendation as you're doing your strategic planning. Those are the things you talk about. Absolutely. It's a threat or an opportunity, depending on how you look at it. And then what do you think that risk is to your business or the opportunity? And what do you want to do about it? And if it's in your strategic plan, you think there's a risk that you're going to be hurt by the economy this year because of the election, what triggers can you pull or actions do you want to take or incorporate into your strategic plan to mitigate that best of your ability? So that'd be my response. I think it's really a really good question because that is reality. But that's part of strategic planning. You know, as we're digging through here, that's what you want to think about. Where's your business risk? What could happen? And that's what this is all about. So good question. And I hope that answers.
Steve, can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Kathy again from Toolcraft. We're actually doing our SWOT analysis right now. And one of the questions that came up was, you know, sometimes we get confused between strengths and opportunities and threats and weaknesses.
Yeah.
How do you define the difference?
Yeah. Sometimes people talk about what's an external versus internal. So,
Okay.
you know, that's how some people do it. They kind of use, they think they break those out by external, internal. But
Meaning,
I also, that
meaning like
maybe,
strengths and weaknesses are internal?
yeah. And then you may want to talk about as opportunities and threats may be external, right?
Okay.
I've seen it done that way. And I got I'm kind of, when a little later on, I got a little bit different model in that might also help you. So
Okay, thank you.
a good timely question. So. Okay, great. Appreciate the engagement. Anything else, Laura? Or?
Well, I have a quick question. On your point number 1 on that last slide, when you asked what business am I in, and
Yep.
you said one answer might be I'm in the agricultural part business, but that's really not a full definition of what business am I in. Can you
Right.
drill down a little bit further and give a couple of examples?
Sure.
Or an example?
Sure. So it's true that may be the business that you're in, right? But, and I'm not trying to offend anybody, it's maybe in the agriculture business, but it's the point of, it may be you bring, you provide components to ensure the life of combines and agriculture equipment. So, you know, that's kind of what you're doing, you know, kind of bring it at a higher level. You bring high quality components so that, you know, farmers can run efficiently on their equipment. That's the kind of thing that I'm talking about. You don't just bring that part, you bring a greater value. You bring the design and solutions to, and again, I'm just sticking on this one as an example, to, you know, I'll just say farmers for now, to help ensure that they run efficiently. I hope that helped, but that's kind of what I'm trying to get to is you bring greater value than just a part or a service. You bring a lot more.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Okay, we good to move on?
Yes, good to go.
How are we doing on time? I don't have a clock.
It's 1:38.
Okay, oh, I better move. Okay, so I need to move fast. Okay, so the next principle is around asking strategic questions. And there's 7, again, questions in the planning process. And again, answering these will bring clarity to your ideal process. And the first one is obviously most important. What are the values and virtues and quality and traits that are most important to you and your business and how you want it to run and how you want to be reflected in whatever you produce for your customers and clients and how you want to associate with the community. And, you know, here's the emphasis on values, right? Once they're defined, you must hire, fire, review, reward, recognize people based on these core values. This is how you build a thriving culture. Once you have those defined, you all, the leadership from all the way down, have to live and act to these values. Next, vision. If your business could be perfect in 5 years from today, what would it look like? And be specific. Here's another example I'll throw. Sometimes people say, well, I want to be really good at making these parts. You know, again, very simple example. That's not it. You want to be the #1 preferred supplier in your field. You want to be 15 times bigger than you are today. You know, more specific. So, you know, vision is about seeing, right? It should be clear what you're seeing, not vague. And that's my point there. Mission, again, based upon your values and vision, how do you achieve your vision? What does that look like? How do you operate as a business? Purpose, why are you in business? Many people say to make money, but I bet many of you, if you started the business, there were reasons why. And we're gonna go into great detail on this, so I'm gonna move along on that subject. And goals, once you have that vision, what are the key milestones, meaning objectives, that you have to meet in order to get you those stepping objectives that get you to achieve your vision? And then back to knowledge and skills, what do you have to do? If you have to change anything, if you're stretching your capabilities, making sure you know what those are. And then your daily activities, I mentioned a little bit before, how do you embrace the strategic plan into your business and how do you drive it day in and day out? How are you measuring it? What's the visibility you're doing to make sure that everybody understands their role and responsibilities towards the plan? Any quick questions on that before I move along? Sorry, I picked up the pace a little bit just so we can get through this.
Steve, were those, can you repeat there were 7, right?
Yes. Can you see the slide?
Values, vision, mission, purpose, goals, daily activities. Okay, I was missing that one.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, you bet. Okay. All right. So I mentioned before about excellence. Again, we strategically, we should play to our strengths. Your business should be a reflection of your strengths, right? But sometimes we often try, you know, and we want to be something that we aren't. So be aware of that. Don't try to get into something that you're not good at or you don't have the potential to be at. And sometimes I've seen it, I've experienced it. We get all excited about something, right? The bright, shiny object, and we think we can go do something, but it wasn't a strength of ours to even pursue in the first place. So a word of caution there. And back to the question about the economy and stuff like that, and strengths and weaknesses discussion Kathy brought up. You know, again, this is pretty almost SOP of a strategic planning process is doing a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And I also look at it a different way, and this is what I mentioned, Kathy, when you asked the question. There's another way of doing it. You do strengths, weaknesses, and then trends. So then you challenge yourself to say, what are the trends? And that's when you start thinking strategically. What are the trends of the business? What are the trends of the industry? What are the trends in machine processes or equipment that we have, processes that we have? What are the trends in our HR operation? So kind of thinking strategically versus, again, it makes you pull your mind out of your business and think about what's going on around the world around you. And, you know, without going into too much detail about this as well, you know, another key thing here is getting input from people, not only your employees, but also from stakeholders. Go to your customers, go to your suppliers, go to your business partners, go to your service providers and ask them these questions. Now, you may not ask them that way, right? There's customer surveys and things like that you can do to get, you know, so it's more generic, but it'll get you the answers you need. My point is think outside your 4 walls because you can get some tremendous value out of input from outside your 4 walls. And again, just like we talked about COVID, with COVID this year and the impact on just about every business, I bet each one of you has noted some lessons learned. And again, I encourage you to think about those as well and how they can be incorporated into your strategic plan going forward, because you experienced some things you didn't plan for, absolutely. But I bet you learned some things or saw some things maybe that weren't directly related to COVID, but you know, somewhere kind of below COVID as a result, you saw something happen in your business. Those are great opportunities to incorporate into your process or into your plan going forward. Okay, so we want to talk about inspiring your why. And this is the purpose of your business. And this is, I don't know if many of you have ever heard of Simon Sinek, a very popular guy. He's an optimist, author. He's on YouTube everywhere. He's on LinkedIn. You see him everywhere probably. And he wrote this book, Start with the Why. He wrote a couple books. And I have a short YouTube that I'd like to share with you. It's 5 minutes. And I'm going to play that. And you can hear his concept about, you know, the purpose of your business and how important that is to your business succeeding. So if there's any issues with this, just let me know, Lori.
I call it the golden circle. Why, how, what? This little idea explains why some organizations and some leaders are able to inspire where others aren't. Let me define the terms really quickly. Every single person, every single organization on the planet knows what they do 100%. Some know how they do it, whether you call it your differentiating value proposition or your proprietary process or your USP. But very, very few people or organizations know why they do what they do. And by why, I don't mean to make a profit. That's a result. It's always a result. By why, I mean what's your purpose? What's your cause? What's your belief? Why does your organization exist? Why do you get out of bed in the morning? And why should anyone care? Well, as a result, the way we think, the way we act, the way we communicate is from the outside in. It's obvious. We go from the clearest thing to the fuzziest thing. But the inspired leaders and the inspired organizations, regardless of their size, regardless of their industry, all think, act, and communicate from the inside out. Let me give you an example. I use Apple because they're easy to understand and everybody gets it. If Apple were like everyone else, a marketing message from them might sound like this. We make great computers. They're beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. Want to buy one? Meh. And that's how most of us communicate. That's how most marketing is done, that's how most sales is done, and that's how most of us communicate interpersonally. We say what we do, we say how we're different or how we're better, and we expect some sort of behavior, a purchase, a vote, something like that. Here's our new law firm. We have the best lawyers with the biggest clients. We have, we always perform for our clients, do business with us. Here's our new car. It gets great gas mileage. It has, leather seats. Buy our car. But it's uninspiring. Here's how Apple actually communicates. Everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. We just happen to make great computers. Want to buy one? Totally different, right? You're ready to buy a computer from me. All I did was reverse the order of the information. What it proves to us is that people don't buy what you do, people buy why you do it. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. This explains why every single person in this room is perfectly comfortable buying a computer from Apple. But we're also perfectly comfortable buying an MP3 player from Apple, or a phone from Apple, or a DVR from Apple. But as I said before, Apple's just a computer company. There's nothing that distinguishes them structurally from any of their competitors. Their competitors are all equally qualified to make all of these products. In fact, they tried. A few years ago, Gateway came out with flat-screen TVs. They're eminently qualified to make flat-screen TVs. They've been making flat-screen monitors for years. Nobody bought one. And Dell came out with MP3 players and PDAs. And they make great quality products, and they can make perfectly well-designed products, and nobody bought one. In fact, talking about it now, we can't even imagine buying an MP3 player from Dell. Why would you buy an MP3 player from a computer company? But we do it every day. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. When we communicate from the outside in, yes, people can understand vast amounts of complicated information like features and benefits and facts and figures. It just doesn't drive behavior. When we communicate from the inside out, we're talking directly to the part of the brain that controls behavior, and then we allow people to rationalize it with the tangible things we say and do. This is where gut decisions come from. Sometimes you can give somebody all the facts and your figures, and they say, I know what all the facts and details say, but it just doesn't feel right. Why would we use that verb? It doesn't feel right, because the part of the brain that controls decision-making doesn't control language. And the best we can muster up is, I don't know, it just doesn't feel right. Or sometimes you say you're leading with your heart, or you're leading with your soul. Well, I hate to break it to you, those aren't other body parts controlling your behavior. It's all happening here in your limbic brain, the part of the brain that controls decision-making and not language. But if you don't know why you do what you do, and people respond to why you do what you do, then how will you ever get people to vote for you or buy something from you, or more importantly, be loyal?
I hope you enjoyed that. For sake of time, I'm going to move pretty fast. But again, it's just a reminder. He says, it's not, they don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And how, as leaders in the business, is always emphasis on the why. And as you're building your strategic plan, why are you in business? And a lot of things start evolving around that why and building around that why. So it's pretty powerful. It's great. I'd love to talk more about it, but with respect for your time, I'm going to move along to our next phase. And I'm going to skip questions. So, okay, we'll come back. Let's get into the plans. So as I talked before, a strategic plan can be very simple. We talked all these different elements of a strategic plan, and yes, that takes some work. That doesn't you don't just do that in a couple hours. All the work is done in that asking the questions of your business and challenging your business and gaining information of the market and all of that. There's a lot of work that you've got to do. And that's the process. So you gain as much as possible so that you can funnel that down into a simple strategic plan. And it's easy to do once you know what's important to you in the business. And what I show here, and people have all different types of versions of their strategic plan. There's no doubt about it. I'm sure each one of you have one. And my point here is, if maybe you're new and build a strategic plan, this is the best way to start. A very simple plan here where you're hitting the key elements of the plan. They're clearly identified: the vision, the mission, the values, the objectives, the strategies, the actions plan. It's all right there. All the deliverables are all right there. And when you talk about communicating in an organization, that's it. You've got this one simple plan that you can talk to the organization. Keeping it simple, keeping it focused, and focusing on those priorities of what's your business, not everything. It's the stuff that's critical to your growth and your success as a business. So that's one simple example. There's another example from the book called Scaling Up. It's a little bit deeper dive of a strategic plan, and it gets into even the additional elements that you want to think about. And again, I just share this as a reference because when you think of one-page plan, people think of them differently. And you can make them, higher level, I didn't say it, more detailed without being too complex. And I won't go through all this, but this is a really good example. And I actually have the software that we use with our clients that you can, all this is electronically, and you can share with employees, they update it and everything else like that. But the point is, it's got quarter values, the purpose, and you can put your 3 to 5 year targets, your goals for this year. You can get quarterly focused using this one-page plan. And you can clearly identify for the major priorities of the business who's accountable. Start talking about brand promises and how you're going to measure those, and critical KPIs and BHAG, which is a big, hairy, audacious goal from good to great. It's kind of like your vision. It's all right there, and it really keeps you focused and you manage to this one-page plan. And again, depending on where you're at and how complex you want to make it, I'm not saying this is complex, but from the example that I gave you before, you can see it's a little bit step further. EOS is another one. Maybe some of you are using them. It's called the Entrepreneurial Operating System. Traction is one of the books it's called. It's in between this one and the one I just showed you before. A simple process, very well run, very organized, and a really good way to start your strategic planning process. So again, my major point is there's a lot of work and effort to get to this point, but once you get to this point, it's very easy to manage. So from an implementation standpoint, at a high level, how do you do a strategic plan implementation? Well, obviously you have your leadership team established who does this, and you have to get that input from the staff. I mentioned before, external stakeholders as well should be part of that. Just as an example, and maybe some of you are doing it, client I'm meeting with tomorrow, we're meeting with employees to start getting their input in the strategic plan. Next week, I'm meeting with another client where we're starting our strategic plan session. We met with all their employees over the last couple of weeks to get their input and ideas in the business, and we'll look for themes and ideas from that. And it's really great because it gets them supporting the process. You have to do annual planning sessions from 1 to 2 days to get that annual plan done, to doing the review quarterly. Then you do monthly reviews to make sure you're staying on track. What are your weekly action items and metrics so you're driving to those strategic plans? And then ultimately important is making sure that all your employees that have performance plans, they tie into the strategic plans. If they're not tying into the strategic plans, they're not focusing on the right things as a business. Communication is important. Staff meetings, town halls, all company meetings, bulletin boards, intranet. That strategic plan or elements of that strategic plan has to stay out in front of those employees to get that alignment. So just kind of recapping the 5 key principles I talked about, making sure you got the clarity in the business, you're asking the strategic questions, you're playing to your strengths, you understand the purpose of your business, and then getting into developing that strategic plan. And hopefully you've got some other takeaways. Here's my 3 that I like, that I think are important. And it's the one I mentioned before, that strategy creates power, and what that can do for your business is incredible. And it could be simple. I will emphasize again, there's a lot of work getting it to make sure that you have the right focus and the right information so you're making right decisions. But once you develop that strategy, it can be very simple. And the other is you have to live it, always. You have to be living it and driving it. You have to drive it through the organization. You have to make sure there's clear oversight processes. You have to make sure there's clear accountability, and everybody understands their role in how they support that strategy. As a FYI, I guess another thing, if you're, no matter, depending on where you're at and if you're interested, I have a strategy assessment. It's literally a self-assessment that you could take or several people in your company could take and you average your scores. And it's really a 15-question tool that really asks you the different elements of a strategic plan and challenges you to assess how you feel about where you're at in each of those elements. You can kind of see maybe where you might be strong or where you might be weak. If you're getting ready to put together a plan, or you've already got a plan and you kind of want to sit back and reevaluate, this might be a tool that can help you out. Very simple tool, just gets you to reflect. If you're interested in using the tool, just please let Lori know by sending your contact info in the chat or Q&A, or just simply get a hold of me. No problems there. I'd be glad to help. Kind of closing out, just another thought, and about having a clearly defined future state. It's important that we're able to pull ourselves out of the day-to-day, the fray, in order to meet our ultimate business objectives. It's tough, I know, but those successful companies that can step out of it, keep people focused, have the right processes in place in the strategic planning, it can be very successful and are successful in doing so. And I think this quote just kind of reminds people that, day-to-day is part of life, but the strategic plan is just as critical. So with that, once again, I'd like to thank you for participating, your engagement in the meeting today. Sorry I had to kind of pick it up a little pace here. I'll stay as long as anybody wants me to, or talk if you need to, or if you want me to go back over anything or answer questions, I sure will. I do wish each of you and your employees the best of health through all this and the best of your business success through all this. I love what I'm doing. If I can be of any help to any of you, if you just want to share your thoughts or ideas or just talk, feel free to contact me by phone or email. I'd love to chat. So with that, Lori, if we still got time for any discussion or anything, I sure am open to it.
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody for joining us today. Thank you, especially Steve, for sharing your expertise with us. Hopefully everybody found a couple of gold nuggets, some takeaways, some inspiration to either get started with a strategic plan or reevaluate what you already have in place. I want to remind everybody that we have our TDMAW car show next Wednesday, September 23rd at Silver Spring Country Club. It's a free event. Come for drinks and cars and networking and social distancing, free apps. It is free, but we do ask that people register online on our website, tdmaw.org, just for planning purposes. I'll remind everyone that we will email a link to the recorded presentation today, so you will have that for to review and kind of help you absorb everything that we were presented with today. And as Steve said, if anyone's interested in staying on for a couple of minutes, he's happy to answer a few more questions before he leaves, but we want to be respectful of your time. So if you need to go, you can feel free to hop off at any time. Thank you.
Laura, I'm sorry, I just saw your note. Did my slides catch up?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I didn't catch that, sorry.
Laura?
Yes.
Could you put up this slide again or just tell me what Steve's phone number is? Because I missed that. Oh. I was trying to type it in, but I missed it.
Steve, can you share your phone number?
Yeah, it's 262-388-7170.
So you're local?
Yes, yep, I'm in Sussex.
Oh, awesome. All right, great. Yeah. Thank you. I'll be sure to reach out to you, Steve. Thank you.
Super. Look forward to talking to you, Kathy.
Thanks.
We also posted the link for the car show in the chat if anybody's interested in that. Do you have any other questions here? Okay, Steve, will you be sharing the PowerPoint? Can I send your PowerPoint slides along with the video, or?
It's going to be very tough. I can send you an abbreviated PDF that will hit all the points. I can do that.
Let's do that.
If you'd like. Okay, I'll send that to you.
Okay. All right. It sounds like we're done for today, so we'll end our recording. And again, thank you very much, Steve. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, everybody. I really enjoyed the conversation, so appreciate it.
Sounds good.
All right, have a great day.
Take care.
Bye-bye.